I would say I'm a, generally speaking, pretty reserved person until you get to know me, and then uh, I won't shut up. Outgoing in the right crowds. I would say, pretty dedicated when it comes to certain things. Very passionate about different stuff, like obviously track and field, throwing. I've been doing it for a really, really long time. My current degree in public health is something I'm very passionate about as well. Growing up, my parents were very supportive of us doing sports. I have two older brothers as well, so we did pretty much everything under the sun. And then eventually, I don't remember how it exactly came to be, but we eventually joined our local track team, which I'm from Airdrie, Alberta. So the track team was the Airdrie Aces. And I was probably like 10 or 11, like I was pretty young, and my brothers also joined at the same time. So we did track and field for years, all of us, up until pretty much the end of high school for my brothers. And then I decided to keep carrying on into university. And I actually used to be a multi-event athlete. I used to do pretty much everything. And then, not that I was necessarily a fan of all of the events, but I had to do all of them. And then I sort of like settled into my niche of throwing. So I've been doing mostly just throwing for probably a good 7 years. Within the realm of track and field, I don't want to say it's less. I feel like the spotlight isn't really on throwing as much as it is the other events in track and field, which I think is unfortunate because there's a lot of like a really rich community amongst the throwers. And I think it's a really, really cool event because it sort of brings a lot of different physical capabilities in different areas that you maybe wouldn't even expect into one event. And I was never really like a super fast kid. I wasn't really good with running. I remember when I used to run a 1 kilometer race when I was younger, I had to run with my inhaler because I was just absolutely like wheezing, having a hard time breathing by the time I was done. So running was never going to be a passion of mine, that's for sure. But I just had this sort of natural affinity to an extent with throwing, and I've always been a little bit bigger than all of the other kids, so I kind of have that natural strength aspect. And it definitely came a lot more naturally than other events did. So I sort of narrowed in on that, and then just over the years, the people that I've met in the community makes it even more interesting, more like something that I want to be a part of. So that's been really, really nice. So in a throwing competition, the general consensus is you get 6 throws or 6 rounds, and you're trying to throw the farthest that you can in those 6 rounds. So normally there's not like a huge limit on who can all compete. But if there's enough people, they'll do them in like separate heats so that there's not like 30 people throwing at one time. So everyone gets the first 3 throws, and then after those first 3 throws, they pause the competition and they take the top 8 of those throws, and then they get another 3 more throws at the end. So it's sort of can be a very large group of people being narrowed down into just 8 people for the final 3 throws. And then it's ultimately whatever throw is the furthest out of, it could be your first round, it could be your last round, it doesn't matter what round it's in. But if you have the furthest throw, you win the competition. There's definitely an aspect of sort of explosiveness and power. There's, I feel like, a very common misconception with throwers that you have to be really, really strong. And there is like that physical aspect of strength, but it's sort of combining strength with speed, which is kind of basically more so what power is. So that's really important. And there's a really, really big coordination aspect, which I think is going back to my natural affinity for throwing. I feel like I've had that coordination to be able to do most of it, at least for hammer. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily coordinated enough for shot put, which is why I don't think I do as well in it. So hammer is definitely my main event because of that. But there's that power aspect, the coordination, and there is definitely a bit of speed there. I don't like running, but that is definitely one of the things that we have to do, is being able to sprint fast or get up to a fast speed in a short amount of time is really important, because it's, in a lot of ways, I've heard people talk about throwing as being like a sprint across the circle. It's not very big, but it's really important how fast you go. And there's just a lot of, like, I feel like the overall throwing just takes a lot of different factors of like physicality and brings them all together. And so in terms of my training, we do a lot of powerlifting and weightlifting. We do running every day, short sprints, and a little bit of a warm-up just to get a little bit of cardio in and to just get ready for the workout. And then we do our practice training with actually throwing the hammer. And then that looks to be about, kind of depending on the person, 8 to 10 sessions a week. So some days I train twice a day. I originally was enrolled in a undergrad in chemistry, which I took one semester of it and I was like, absolutely not. So I pretty quickly realized that wasn't for me. And I honestly don't even actually remember how I came across the public health degree, but I've always been sort of interested in something healthcare-ish, like related, because I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 9. So I've dealt with that for a significant period of my life. And so I ended up finding this program, and I remember from just taking my first class, I was immediately like hooked on it. I think it's an absolutely amazing field, and it's so broad and has such like a rich history to it. And that's like the beautiful thing about it, is that it applies to everything, especially like if you think about it hard enough. Like it's probably one of the broadest fields. And I'm absolutely loving it. I'm about to hopefully go into my practicum with it next year. And then hopefully maybe one day I'm gonna see about going into a master's degree and becoming an epidemiologist one day. I would say one of the biggest challenges is definitely the level of it in comparison to where I was in high school. Like I was competitive in high school, but it was obviously very different because I was still young. I still had all these other things that I wanted to do. And it was also a little bit different because COVID was in my 11th grade year. So my 12th grade year, I really didn't end up training very much, at least not as much as I used to. So it was a very, very big change to go from high school, where I was training maybe 3 times a week, to university, where I was being thrown into twice a day, and weightlifting twice a day as well. So that was a big, big change. And I think, 4 years later, I feel like I'm starting to get a better handle on it. It's just getting used to the amount and the intensity of training has been a big challenge, definitely in terms of like injuries as well. I have a chronic ongoing knee issue, and it's just trying to balance with trying to keep that under control and not exacerbating that, but still wanting to put in the effort to be able to train as well as I can. I would say it's definitely, at least for me personally, I would say it's very hard in the moment, in short term, to be able to have the mental resiliency to be like, oh, like this is just an injury now, like I'm not necessarily going to be like this forever, even though like chronic injuries do feel like they last forever, and sometimes they do. But it's being able to manage that and working with your coach. I do know Coach Coach Larry has been really, really helpful in sort of trying to work with me and making sure that I'm still getting in as much training as is beneficial, but not going overboard. So I would say, especially for new student athletes, it's sort of easing yourself into it. Um, it's, it is important sometimes to do the whole workout, but it's also realizing you don't have to put in 100% effort every single practice, because you're gonna drain yourself so fast. Um, and then, yeah, like I said, especially with physical injuries, it's also going back to the mental aspect of that and building some mental resiliency. I feel like success is a very, very subjective, and for myself, it's definitely changed over the years. A part of me doesn't like setting really rigid goals or outcomes because, sometimes there's external factors that can happen that might, prevent that from happening. And I would say, generally speaking, in the very grand scheme of things, for me, success, specifically in terms of track and field, is being able to compete and be a part of this sport for as long as I possibly can. Hopefully well into my 50s, 60s, like being a masters athlete one day. I think that would be very, very interesting, and that would be awesome if I could do that one day. Um, and I think that would be really cool to be able to keep doing something that I love for so long. Um, I feel like I've been successful, and obviously there's more sort of goals and outcomes that I can achieve, but I feel like success comes in like little chunks that sort of builds up over time. So there's not going to be like a one moment where, like, I don't know, maybe one day if I go to Worlds or maybe even hopefully the Olympics one day, I'm not going to do that and immediately feel like, oh, I've been successful. I feel like the build up to that is going to be where that success comes from.